A new Fox News poll shows a 3-point shift in Biden-Trump matchup since May in the direction of President Biden. We are about 3 weeks out from Donald Trump's conviction, and we are finally seeing the shift in polling that we've been looking for. It took a little bit of time, but things are now moving towards President Biden's direction. I'll read this Fox News article in a second, but first, this tweet from Simon Rosenberg summarizes some recent polling we've gotten. It says, Biden gains in new polling. A Fox News poll shows a 3-point Biden gain. Echelon shows a 4-point Biden gain. CBS/YouGov shows a 3-point Biden gain. Morning Consult, 2-point Biden gain. Yahoo/YouGov, 2-point Biden gain. And New York Times, 2-point Biden gain. He says, election appears to be changing now. I want to break down this Fox News poll and this 5-way graph that they provided that shows RFK Jr. losing support. He is bleeding support and it's going to President Biden. But first, Donald Trump was incredibly mad that Fox News had to report on this new poll. So Fox News ran a segment showing this, Biden leading 50 to 48%, and almost immediately Donald Trump posts a Truth Social post that says, Fox News polls are always the worst for me. They have been from the beginning and always will be. But what happens when we start to see a broader trend of polling moving away from Donald Trump? How will he justify that? So this Fox News article reads, President Biden is the frontrunner in a hypothetical matchup against former President Trump for the first time since October, as positive views of the economy inch up, hitting their highest level thus far in the Biden presidency, according to a new Fox News national survey. And that is great. That is exactly what we're looking for. As we get closer to the election and the economy continues to recover, we want to see people noticing that, and we want to see that reflected in polling. As inflation continues to go down, as real wage growth continues to outpace inflation, and maybe even interest rates will be lowered, hopefully people start to realize that the Biden presidency was actually pretty great. And I understand that inflation is painful for everybody. It sucks. It's painful to go to the grocery store and see things becoming more expensive, but it's not President Biden's fault. Inflation was a worldwide, a global phenomenon. So if people can start to see that the economy is recovering under President Biden, that is only good. The article continues, since May, there was a 3-point change in the presidential race. Trump was ahead by 1 point last month, while Biden is up by 2 points today, 50 to 48%. That's well within the margin of error. And they show this chart of what the polling has looked like over the past year or so. So in August of 2023, Biden was up by 3 points. Then Trump takes the lead. Then you can see that Trump holds the lead for a while from about November to March or May. And now Biden is slowly starting to gain the lead again. And I think this could be a function of people finally realizing that this election is actually between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. There was a poll a while back showing that most Americans didn't even know who the two candidates were. So after the conventions, after the debates, after all of these campaign events, people should start to realize that it is Donald Trump, the wannabe dictator, versus slightly old Joe Biden. Obviously, we're going to take the old dude over the dictator. The article continues, beyond improved evaluations of the economy, a range of other events since the May survey could influence small shifts in vote preference, including Trump's hush money conviction, Hunter Biden's gun trial conviction, a positive U.S. jobs report, and Biden's immigration executive order. Biden's current 50% support is his best this election cycle. He hasn't been ahead of Trump since October 2023, and that was just by 1 point. There was also a 4-point shift in the expanded ballot. When other potential candidates are included, Biden tops Trump by 1 point. RFK Jr. receives 10%, and Cornel West and Jill Stein get 2% each. Last month, Trump was ahead of Biden by 3 points. And let's take a look at this chart for a second, because there's a really interesting trend that I noticed. You can see that RFK Jr.'s support has been bleeding. It's gone from 15% down to 10%, but in that exact same time frame, President Biden has gained a similar amount of support. He's gone from 35 to 42%. So it really does look like all of these voters that are defecting from RFK Jr.'s campaign are going to President Biden's campaign. And I'm sure you guys have thought about this the same way as I have. Most of the people people voting for RFK Jr.'s are probably going to be former Trump voters. This is incredibly anecdotal, but a lot of my friends who voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020 were incredibly anti-establishment and loved the populist rhetoric, and RFK Jr. plays exactly to that populist rhetoric. He's running as an outsider, someone who's never been a politician, someone who doesn't have people pulling his strings, as he says, and that appeals to a lot of my former MAGA friends. The article continues, Trump does well among men, plus 15, rural voters, plus 17, white men without a degree, plus 30, and white evangelical Christians, plus 46. Biden matches that with strong support among voters ages 65 and over, plus 15. I talked about this in a video recently. Older voters are breaking towards President Biden disproportionately, and that is historically not the case. Usually older people tend to be more conservative, but we are seeing a shift. Biden is winning women by plus 17, urban voters by plus 23, and white women with a college degree by plus 28. That is definitely easily a function of Donald Trump's misogynistic rhetoric plus the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Biden receives the backing of 73% of black voters. That's a bit below the 79% he had before the 2020 election, when he went on to win over black voters with 91% support, according to the November Fox News analysis. And throughout the past few election cycles, MAGA Republicans have loved claiming that black Americans are now splitting for the Republican Party, or that they're walking away from the Democratic Party en masse, but that is just not shown by any of the polling. This poll looks very similar to what we had in 2020. It went from 79% to 73%, so a slight dip, but when it actually comes time to vote, black Americans disproportionately vote for Democrats, and that showed in the 2020 election when they broke for Biden by 91%, and I'm assuming it's going to be pretty similar this election cycle. President Biden was the VP to the first ever black president, and that means a lot to a lot of minority voters, whereas Donald Trump has consistently made racist remark, and that also means a lot to a lot of minority voters, but in a bad way. The article continues, the new survey shows nearly all partisans remain loyal, as 95% of Democrats are with Biden and 95% of Republicans back Trump. Of course, we live in a hyper-partisan time. The key is that independents favor Biden by 9 points, a shift from May when they preferred Trump by 2 points. While equal numbers of independents say leadership, 59%, and integrity, 58%, are extremely important to their vote decision, they are more likely to say Biden has integrity by 23 points compared to Trump being a strong leader by only 11. More on those traits later. Quote, the underlying demographic tendencies that have defined the race remain in place, says Republican pollster Darren Shaw, who conducts Fox News surveys with Democrat Chris Anderson. Quote, Biden has improved slightly with women and seniors, which keeps him afloat despite significant reductions from 2020 and support from younger voters and African Americans. I wouldn't say it was a significant reduction, but yeah, 6% could be a lot. Trump retains a smidgen more of his 2020 voters than Biden in the head-to-head by 1 point, and the expanded ballot plus 3. And new voters favor him in both the 2-way and the 5-way. Voters who haven't participated in the 4 most recent general elections are defined as new voters. So people that tend to not vote are breaking for Trump, which is honestly pretty good because registered voters and even likely voters begin to break for Biden, which means they're more likely to vote, of course. 3/4 of voters say it matters, quote, a great deal to them who wins the presidential election, and they favor Biden over Trump by 5 points. More women than men, by 7 points, feel like the outcome matters a great deal, as do more voters ages 65 plus than young voters plus 24. That could be a big help to Biden if it holds because, as you guys know, older voters are staunch voters. They show up every single time there's an election, whereas younger voters aren't really quite reliable yet, so having older voters breaking for Biden, this reliable base, could be great. So we're still about 4.5 months out from the election. Obviously, polling isn't perfect. It won't be perfectly predictive, but it was pretty good in both 2020 and 2022, so I do think it's worth looking at. I do think it's worth not getting complacent. And I've been thinking, even if the polling is off and President Biden blows Donald Trump out, it's almost good for us to have this horse race polling, because then voters won't get complacent. Voters will turn out to defeat Donald Trump. A lot of people stayed home in 2016 thinking there is no shot this Trump dude will win, but now we know that not only is it possible, but it almost seems like a coin flip this election cycle. So in a roundabout way, it might be nice to motivate voters to get out there and vote against Donald Trump. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, comment a blue heart, hit that subscribe button, and have a great day.